Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Bonnie Stacey of Bonnie Stacey Landscapes. Bonnie is a landscape designer based in Perth, or an hour north of Perth in Western Australia. And in this chat with her, it didn't take long for me to realise how obviously passionate she is about the work that she does. So it was pretty enjoyable talking with her because of that. And I love that she's done the ebook, and I think it's there'll be some valuable tips in here for people listening, because she's sort of educating people who are, DIYs and first home buyers. I think there's also some value in there for landscapers starting out. But if you're experienced in the industry, doing an ebook could potentially be another way to make a little bit of revenue and educate some people as well. So whether that's on how to pave or how to build a deck. And Bonnie's also got a design course that she's releasing the day that this podcast comes out as well. So I've got no doubt that'll do pretty well. Again, targeting the first home buyers, DIYs, so people who can't quite afford to get a design done, but want to have a crack at it themselves. So some great value that she's providing, and hopefully some great value in this episode. So here's Bonnie Stacey. Bonnie, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast, first episode for this year. The first question I've got for you is asking how you started in the industry.
So I suppose I've always had quite an interest in design. Since I was little, I had convinced myself that I really wanted to study architecture. So that was kind of always the plan. So I was enrolled to study architecture, and I took a gap year after finishing high school and worked in just like an office doing general admin duties. And I learned that I absolutely hated working indoors mostly. I just really didn't like, being indoors all day, every day just wasn't for me. So I was like, I still really want to do something design based, but I want to do something a bit more outdoors. So that led me to landscape architecture. So I ended up studying that for about a year and a half, but it was very commercially based. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to do residential. I wasn't really interested in doing commercial. So that's when I learnt there was a landscape design course offered through TAFE. So I enrolled for that and horticulture, and studied that, loved it. And that's kind of how I got into the landscaping world, I suppose.
So once you realised that the course was kind of, like when you were looking at landscape architecture, once you realised it was all kind of the commercial side of things, had you already enrolled into it?
Yeah, so I didn't really, so the first year that I studied was pretty much straight architecture. There was nothing like to do with landscapes, which I was really keen once I decided, I want to do landscape architecture. I just wanted to learn about it. So I found it quite frustrating in that first year, just doing mostly architecture. And then, the following year, when we started getting into it, it was just, that's when I realized, this is very commercial. And probably, they do touch on residential, but I just felt that there was a lot of commercial in there. And for, if I was going to sit through this course for the next 4 or 5 years, I really wanted to make sure that it was right for me and that it was something I loved doing. But I didn't realize it was so commercial when I had enrolled. It wasn't, until I was about a year in that I just went, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah, like I spoke with Brent Reed, who's he's running the London College of Garden Design, and that's something that we discussed because I think it's still pretty common now. A lot of it is like town planning when you're doing landscape architecture, and a lot of it is relevant. Like there should be 2 different delineated paths to become a landscape architect, whether it's commercial or residential, and that's why it's good to have the landscape design course like you did, and also like the
Yeah.
London College of Garden Design one. So at least you can actually, zoom in on what you wanted to do, because they're completely different, like you said.
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't even know about the landscape design course. Otherwise, I probably would have gone straight into that. But yeah, until I really started searching into it, it wasn't something that I really knew about as well. And I've had so many people message me through Instagram asking, like, how do you get into the industry? Like, what did you study? And a lot of people don't know that landscape design is a course offered through TAFE. So, whether that's something that needs to be more advertised as well, so that people actually know about it. Because, landscape architecture is quite different and very full on.
Yeah, I think it's about 5. How many years is the course? Is it 5 years?
I think it used to be 4, and then they've, when I was doing it, I think it got changed to 5.
Yeah, it's crazy. So once you've done your design course, what did you go to then? Did you go work for someone else?
So I got offered a job for a big landscaping company over here while I was studying my diploma. So it was a really good opportunity. So I kind of was like, yep, I'm just going to not finish my diploma or go in and do this job. So it was actually doing, like over here, there's a lot of new development areas and estates. And this company would go in and basically design and install included landscaping as part of those. So that was my first job in landscape design, I suppose. And it was always going to be a stepping stone because it was quite basic and limited, but it was just a really good way of getting used to talking to people and starting off with really simple designs, so that I could get confident and then kind of move on to the bigger stuff.
Yeah. So did you learn much about, did your plant knowledge grow from the course, or is that something you grew on the job?
To be honest, I think most of my plant knowledge came from work experience. So I had part-time jobs working in plant nurseries. I worked as a gardener, and then obviously working for landscapers as well. I think that's when I really picked up on most of my plant knowledge. I'm kind of someone who learns better practically rather than reading something. So I can learn plant names at TAFE and, memorize them, but it was really good to learn them and learn what actually is suitable in Perth through working with plants, I suppose.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I did, when I was studying horticulture back in the day before I started landscaping, there was a landscape design element of the course, and one of the things was you had to come with a list of, like, they'd give you a list of plants and you'd have to read them back the next class. So I could memorize them, but I still had no idea about anything about the plants. I just knew what plants had to get. So it doesn't mean anything, but working with them, you actually see what they look like and feel and learn about them. So that's definitely a lot better way to go. So where did you go after that place that was doing that first job?
After that, I went to a landscaper, like a small business. It was actually really hard. There was no jobs advertised for landscape designers in Perth at the time. And even if 1 or 2 did pop up, it was super competitive. So I ended up just ringing around and contacting a heap of landscapers and just said, look, I've studied landscape design. I'm working at the moment, but I'm keen to get into more residential design. I ended up getting a job through that, which I stayed for, I think, around 3 years. And I absolutely loved that job. When I took it, I was like, this is my dream job. This is amazing. And I actually learnt on that job how to use the drawing program that I now use, which is Vectorworks. My boss was just fantastic. Like, he just taught me the ropes and was really patient and gave me a fair bit of free rein as well. I was the only designer there, so that was pretty cool as well. But yeah, really loved that job.
So with Vectorworks, I haven't used. I use Landworks CAD. Haven't had much to do with Vectorworks, but can you do? Do you do any 3D in that, or has it capability?
You can do 3D in Vectorworks. I did a little bit, but it was really time consuming. I think from speaking to other people in the industry that something like SketchUp is probably a bit quicker and easier to use. But yeah, Vectorworks was really found for 2D design. I find it just really easy to use once you know what you're doing. But yeah, in terms of 3D, we didn't need 3D for a lot of our designs, so I probably wasn't using it enough to get quick and good at it. So yeah, a lot of the work was just 2D plans.
Yeah. And so after 3 years there, where'd you go to then?
Then I kind of, was looking for a bit more of a challenge. So my goal had always been to work for Tim Davies Landscaping over here, which is a really good and well-known landscaping business. So I'd been in contact with them, just trying to get enough experience so that I could get my foot in the door. And then, I ended up getting offered a job there, which was very exciting. I'm still very sad to leave my old job because I loved it, but definitely wanted to challenge myself a little bit more and get some more experience. So that is where I went next. And that's where I worked until I started my own business.
So how long were you there for?
I think it was about 1.5 years. And then, I got pregnant and then took maternity leave. And then that's when I kind of thought, I live an hour out of Perth. So knowing that I would only be going back part-time and the commute and having a baby, I was like, now's probably the time, if ever, to try and do a bit of freelancing or see if I can, make a business for myself. And it just honestly escalated. I just had no idea how busy and quick it was going to take off. When I was first weighing up my options and sussing it all out, I thought, I probably have to get a part-time job at a local nursery just to kind of make ends meet until I get enough work. And it was just a complete opposite. I've only been in business for 1.5 years, and I'm fully booked months ahead. I've got a wait list of over 60 people at the moment. It's just exceeded my expectations of what being in business for myself would actually be like.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have been following for a little while, but I had no idea it had been that short amount of time that you've been in business for. That's pretty cool. And because that's one of the hardest things is building up the name to get so that you keep getting work coming in. So the fact that you've done that straight away is awesome. So well done on that. How did that happen?
To be honest, Instagram has been such a massive tool for me. I would say 95% of my work comes from Instagram. I don't have any paid advertising, anything like that. But I just, started an Instagram account and really wanted to show people the value in hiring a landscape designer and also what I do. Because I think a lot of people just don't even realize how much a landscape designer actually does. I just started sharing tips and tricks and kind of behind the scenes of what I do and just sharing knowledge, I suppose. And definitely shared a lot of me as well, making sure that I kind of showed my face every now and then just so people kind of got an idea of who I was, and I feel like that definitely helped. But yeah, as soon as I started that Instagram account, it just started getting more and more traction. And yeah, before I knew it, it was just booking after booking. And yeah, I was able to put my prices up, which was good, because I think a lot of the time when you start a new business, you kind of price yourself kind of low, just to kind of get that work through the door. Whereas now I know that I'm charging more what my services are worth. But yeah, Instagram has just been huge for me and my business.
Yeah. And something else that you seem to be doing really well with is the ebook that you've got out. And there's it's called Garden to Grow. And there's a review that I saw on there, which just must be the best thing that you would have received. I'm going to read it out because I read it and thought how awesome it was. So this is someone reviewing your ebook. Best thing I ever did was purchase your ebook. I studied it, did my homework, followed through with your soil prep, watering and fertilizer tips, and I'm blown away with my beautiful, fast-growing garden bed. It's the first time in the 18 years in my house that every decision I made at the nursery was the right one based on your ebook guidance, and I seriously cannot stop gazing lovingly at my garden bed. So thank you. What a great resource your ebook is. Love it. Many thanks. That must have been pretty awesome to read.
Yeah, I had that come through, I think 2 days ago. And when I read it, I was just like, wow, I think this is one of the best reviews I've had. And it always makes me feel good, because one of my main things that I kept noticing in the industry is you can design a really great landscape, but if it's not installed properly, like I always am banging on about how important soil prep is and making sure that you're watering enough for establishment, and these kind of things that aren't common knowledge for a lot of people, because people can spend thousands of dollars on a design and then they might decide to install it themselves, not knowing that they have to do soil prep and that you have to water more when it's establishing. And then a couple of months later, everything's looking really average, or they've had stuff die and it's really deflating. So that's what kind of led me to writing the ebook, because I just kept driving past places in Perth and seeing new landscaping that was mostly DIY, and people had just put in the wrong plants, or I could see they hadn't done any soil prep. There wasn't retic installed. And in my head, I was like, oh, I feel like people just need a guide if they're not going to, hire a professional. They need something they can follow so that they're not just wasting their time and money. And it was kind of information that I kept repeating myself. So I was like, if I just put it together and it's something that people can buy, then they have it and they can refer to it whenever they want. So yeah, I'm so glad that I did it, because at the time it was quite stressful putting it together, because I was trying to work and I had my son. He would have been, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. And I was like, oh, is this even going to be worth it? And then, yeah, just hearing those kind of reviews, I'm always so glad that I did it, because it has been really helpful for a lot of people, just giving them that really important information that isn't common knowledge.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of podcasts I listen to, and they talk about sharing your knowledge as well. I'm not trying to keep it a secret. And I think is that $70 that the ebook is?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's, in terms of getting someone to come out for a consultation, you're going to be paying more than that anyway. And you've got, like, if you get someone out for a consultation, you haven't got a record of everything that they said. So that ebook is like a cheaper consultation, and so there's so much value in that you're giving out. And no doubt that that's played a part in building your profile and getting your clients as well. So have you had any clients who bought the ebook and then got you to do a design?
Yeah, I've been quite surprised how many consultations I've gone to And people have been like, oh, I've already bought your ebook. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like even quite often I'll go and do a consultation and people be asking about soil prep, and because there's only so much information you can cover at a consultation. So, you know, if they're planning on installing themselves, I'm always like, look, if you buy the ebook, you're always going to have that to refer back to. It's really straightforward. And a lot of them do purchase it just so if they can't remember something I've said, they're like, oh, we'll just look back to the ebook. But yeah, it's definitely been something that's been really great to have, for sure.
I saw on your website you've got your partner John, who he does all of your landscape installs. So
yeah.
Was he landscaping prior to you starting the business as well?
He's been in the construction industry since he left school. He got a trade initially in plumbing, but it was never his passion, I suppose. And just working on site, and he always loved like landscaping and gardening, was really interested in it and knew quite a lot as well, just picking up information and from trial and error himself. So it was kind of always our goal to get him out of something he didn't enjoy and into landscaping, because that's what he loves and what he's passionate about. So he came on board about, what would that be, over 6 months ago, maybe. So yeah, he left his full-time job and came on board and has been doing installs since for our business. And he's just been so good. Like every single client we've had has sent me a message just being like, wow, John works so hard. And I'm like, yeah, he's the hardest worker I know, but he's so particular as well. Like his attention to detail is crazy. Like everything has to be installed perfectly. And I think that's probably his best trait, is that I know my designs are going to be installed how I want them to be, but also properly. And, you know, if something's too hard, he's not going to try and cut corners. He'll take the hard route. He'll be like, no, it's better to do it properly. We'll get it done. And just the results that we've already seen from clients over the 6 months that he's been doing installs has just been phenomenal. Like even they send us photos and we're like, wow, we can't even believe that your garden has grown that much or is doing that well. So it's just so rewarding as well to have the installation side. Because I think, you know, sometimes you do a design and someone walks away and they get it installed, or they install it themselves. It doesn't always necessarily end up being the same as what you had planned. So that's what is so rewarding about install, is actually seeing it go in how you wanted it to and knowing that it's going to perform well. Because I think there's nothing worse if you spend all this time doing this beautiful design and then it doesn't get installed properly, and then the client doesn't know. They might be like, oh, the designer's put in the wrong plants, or, you know, but it's not. It comes down to the installation as well. So yeah, it's been awesome to do installs.
Yeah, I reckon that's another key to, like, for people wanting to choose you as well, because if they are choosing you because they love your designs, knowing that your partner's doing it, he's certainly going to nail the design the way you want it. So that's that's a great way to do it. The only problem will probably be you'll be able to pump out designs quicker than he can install them, so not everyone will be able to get them done.
Yeah, well, he's a one-man band at the moment, so it's just him doing installs, and he works hard and he works well, but yeah, there's only so much one person can do, and that's kind of one thing we're trying to toss up at the moment. I've never wanted to expand and become a really big business or anything like that. I've always wanted to keep it quite small and, you know, just have me doing designs and John doing installs. but yeah, there is only so much that the two of us can do, especially having young kids and stuff. So yeah, it's hard to know what to do, but I feel like we will probably stay the way we are and probably stay small and just take on less jobs, so take on what we can. Yeah, I think that's probably what we'll keep doing at this stage.
Yeah, that's the way to go. Because you can still make the same amount of money as if you're growing large. So because you can keep putting your prices up until you realise what people will actually pay for it. Because there's people who are charging over $30,000 for a design. So, and that's because of their name. So there's still plenty of room to grow to get to that stage. And then, like, I'm in a similar spot. I could grow 3 times the size of what I am, but I know it'll be a lot harder to do, and there's no guarantee that you're going to make 3 times the amount of money. But it's a balance between wanting to make money and wanting to not have too much work, but also hate knocking back work. I hate saying no to people that I can't help them out. So yeah, it's not black and white, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially when really good opportunities come across and you're already kind of fully booked, and it's like, I think last year, the couple months before Christmas, like I realized I just had too much on my plate, and I'm pregnant now with our second baby, so I was like, I really need to stop putting too much on my plate and taking on work and just being like, I'll squeeze you in, that's fine. And like I didn't have enough time to actually give the jobs that I was already working on because I was spreading myself too thin. So yeah, I think definitely taking on less work and just doing it that way is going to be the way forward for us for that reason.
So this episode's coming out on, what did it say today? It's coming out on Monday, the 17th, which is the same day that your design course is coming out. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so super excited. This is something that I have been working on for a while now. So obviously I did the ebook and thought, yep, that's great. But that is definitely more information on soil prep and what plants to use and that kind of thing. Not so much design orientated. And I feel like there's a real lack of service for, first home buyers, maybe second home buyers, people who are on really strict budgets, who may not be able to afford to hire a landscape designer or a landscaper. But again, I just hate seeing them waste money and just like throw money down the drain because they've tried to do the landscaping themselves, and it's just like you can make one mistake in landscaping and it can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars down the track. So I was like, okay, I feel like I need to put together some kind of design help for people. And I tried to start writing another ebook, but I felt like there was too much to cover to put it in an ebook. Like it would just be too overwhelming for people to read all of that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do a course. So basically I've just filmed a heap of videos talking on different parts, and they're just really short videos. So most of them are only 5 minutes. So, people aren't having to sit down for an hour and listen to me bang on about landscaping. So yeah, it's basically a course to help those people design their own landscaping and just run them through like the really important elements, such as orientation and priority areas, and budget as well is a huge one. I think a lot of people, similar to building, like I think people just don't realize how much stuff costs. So a lot of consultations I go to, I'll be speaking to the client, we'll talk about what they want, and then their budget is normally way off what it's actually going to cost. Typically, I say double your budget, and that's what it'll cost, sometimes triple. And that's super common. So just giving people that information up front, say if someone's in the process of building and they don't know how much to set aside for their landscaping, you can kind of let them know in the beginning, look, realistically, this is how much you need to set aside. Obviously, it's different for everyone depending on the size of your block, what you're doing and everything, but just giving them some idea so they don't finish their build, get to landscaping and then get a rude shock when, they start getting quotes. And I think a lot of people do that. They start getting quotes for landscaping and immediately think they're getting ripped off, when it's not the case at all. That's just how much it costs. Because someone can look at, oh yeah, I want to get a lawn, and they're just saying, yeah, lawn's $10 a square meter, but they're not thinking, okay, but how much soil prep do you need? Do you need edging? You got to put in a retic system. It just adds up so quick. So yeah, I cover budget and style as well. I think people get really overwhelmed, particularly if they like a lot of different things. They're just like, oh, I don't know how to put this together without it looking really like a mixed bag. So I've got like an interactive style quiz in there, so they can kind of go in and click what they like, and it'll shoot out an answer at the end and be like, this is the style that's more suited to you. And yeah, just heaps of information on what's important when doing your layout. Like I said, orientation is a huge one in landscaping. You can't be throwing in full shade plants into a full sun position and expect them to grow. Also shade, I don't know if that's a huge issue over there, but I feel like over here, a lot of people are avoiding putting trees in because they're worried about how big they get and how much mess they make. And then what's happening is everyone's backyard is an oven because there's no shade. A lot of people are using artificial turf as well, so that just heats up. And it's just impractical, especially if you've got kids and pets. You can't go out in summer and use your backyard because it's too hot. So just highlighting stuff like that as well, and just explaining to people, you know, don't avoid using trees because you're worried about their size and mess. There's heaps of different types and there's different trees for different situations. They're not something to be scared of. And also helping people with selecting their hardscapes and softscapes. So going into the different types of paving and decking and concrete, and also giving them an idea of pricing as well. So again, it's not really common knowledge for a lot of people what certain products cost. So there might be someone on a really tight budget and they're like, oh, I really want to do crazy paving. And I'm like, okay, that's probably going to chew up your entire budget and some. So just talking about the different products, their price points, and also their practicality, whether they're actually going to be practical to use for your situation. And then softscapes, so the different types of lawn, which lawns are suitable to what situations. The plants was difficult because with my ebook, I wrote that based on Perth conditions. I didn't realise that I would get so much interest from East Coast. So I really wanted to make this course Australia-wide because they do have quite a lot of, quite a big following from the East Coast, and I didn't want to exclude them. So plants is really about explaining to people that Australia is a huge country and we have all different climates. So you can't use the same plants everywhere. So just explaining to people, this is your climate, this is what type of plants would work. And I've kind of done like a spreadsheet of my favorites and what climates they will work in. And also, again, it is design based, but I couldn't help myself with giving a bit of soil info and like soil prep, because that's just, yeah, something I couldn't help myself. So I've also gone into soils, and yeah, I could honestly talk for hours about it. I'm trying to cut it down, but yeah, it's basically like a heap of videos, but there's also downloadable content, so they can download all this information, keep it, refer to it whenever they want. There's also a Facebook group that they can add themselves to, so they can kind of be in touch with other people who are doing their landscaping, which is cool. And yeah, bonus content, kind of landscaping tips for around pools and pots and planters and veggie gardens. There's heaps in there.
Sounds like.
Hence why it's taken me so long to put together. But it was really hard to try and cut it off somewhere, because yeah, I'm kind of someone, I could just write a novel about landscaping, and I know that I really don't want to overwhelm people, because I don't want them to go too hard, too much information, not doing it. So I've really just tried to compact all of my best advice, and I just picture someone who's going to design their own landscaping, whether they're planning on installing it themselves or getting a landscaper in, and just knowing how much weight it will lift off their shoulders, because I think there's so much unknown when you're trying to do landscaping yourself and you don't really know much about it. Just having all of that info will honestly save them so much time and stress and money. And again, similar to the ebook, it's at that price point. So typically you'll pay thousands of dollars to have a landscape design done. Unfortunately, that's not in everyone's budget. So the course full price is $498, but it's on sale for launch week, so it'll go down to $398, so $100 off. But the value you get from that is just, you'll easily make back what you spend just from that information. But yeah, then they're not having to fork out thousands that they don't have, but they're also not wasting thousands on a design that's impractical and doesn't function and will fail. So it's a win-win, hopefully, for them.
Sounds like, yeah, such an awesome idea, and especially at that price point as well. So I reckon it's awesome for the people you've targeted to, in terms of first home buyers and second home buyers and people who can't quite afford a designer. But I reckon landscapers who might have just started out and don't do much design, they could learn a fair bit from that as well. So, and for that price, that's not going to scare anyone off paying.
No, and
even after the first week, paying $500 for that.
Yeah,
that's insane value.
Yeah,
how long does it take to do?
So it's like they have 6 months access to the course, which is like the online videos and the Facebook group. As I mentioned, there's a heap of downloadable materials, so they can keep that forever. But yeah, they have access for 6 months. I wanted to do it self-paced because I realized everyone is in a different situation. Someone might sit down and consume everything within a month. And then there'll be other people who are really time poor, who will just do a little bit every now and then. So yeah, the access is for 6 months. It just depends on how often you want to kind of, how quickly you want to consume the information. But yeah.
And how long did it take to put all of that together?
I think I would have easily been like brainstorming and drafting for like a year. And then probably once I actually sat down and physically started putting it together, I think it maybe would have taken me about 4 months. And I'm kind of someone, once I start something, I'm like all guns blazing. So I dedicated a lot of time once I started to getting it finished. Realistically, I probably should have not worked at the same time or taken on less work. But for some reason I thought, oh, I'll just do it on the side. And yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, I knew from the beginning how I wanted to set it out. So yeah, it's broken into the 4 modules. So it's style and budget, design and layout, hardscapes and softscapes. So I always knew I wanted to do that. And then it was just basically narrowing down what information I was going to include, how I was going to make it so it wasn't really overwhelming, and also making it fun and enjoyable for people, which is why I've done like the interactive style quiz. I don't know if it's me, but I love doing quizzes. And I've got curated Pinterest boards too. So I think that's always fun for people. They can go in and play around with what they like. Because I think I hate when people tell me they feel really overwhelmed and stressed out by landscaping. Like for me, I love landscaping, like it's my passion. So obviously not everyone feels that way about it, but I want it to be something that people are excited to do and they want to enjoy it. Because it is like, I've had so many clients, you know, I've gone out and done a consultation and they're like, oh, I hate gardening. I don't spend any time out here. And then they kind of implement what we've spoken about, or they buy the ebook, they use that. And then a couple of weeks later, they message me and they're like, I love gardening. I'm out here, I'm looking up my garden, look how good it looks. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually really enjoyable when you've got a nice space and you want to take care of it. And it's actually quite therapeutic, you know, going out there, doing a bit of weeding. And yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how much they could enjoy it if they weren't so overwhelmed and stressed out by it.
Yeah, and if it's just an awesome space, because you'd have the same thing where we've had jobs where we do, our clients are looking forward to it, but nothing over the top, but then we finish the space and they just say, we had no idea it was going to look this awesome. And that's the time when they're going to want to go outside and enjoy it. Like if you've just got, you know, some couple of random plants that you put in, you've got no idea what you're doing. It's a garden, but it's nothing that you're going to want to experience. Whereas if you've got someone who designed it, who knows what they're doing, because I've mentioned that a lot of times, there's a difference between a garden and one designed by someone who knows what they're doing, like a designer who knows what they're doing really well. So yeah, if you get someone who knows what they're doing, it's just chalk and cheese. It's not even comparable.
Yeah. And similar to what you're saying, like a lot of people won't realize the potential of a space until they see the design or they see it implemented and they're like, what is this even the same space? Like I can't believe how much it's changed. And there's nothing better than going from seeing someone not use their outdoor areas because they're just you know, they're uninviting, they're unattractive, they just don't want to go out there. A lot of people have just put curtains up and they're like, ignore that it's even there, to somewhere that they want to spend time, that they want to have on show from the house. And you know, as humans, we're wired to you know, we really enjoy spending time outdoors, and it's really good for our mental health. And particularly with COVID and the times we're in, I think having a really usable outdoor space that gives you that is more important than ever. And you know, a lot of people, because they can't go on holidays at the moment, are prioritizing on their outdoor areas, which is amazing, because now they've got these beautiful spaces at home. And I know for us, if it's a nice day, we just spend pretty much the whole time outside with my son. He's he'll be 2 in April. We just spend the whole time out there, and I even notice his mood. Like, he's inside, he's cranky, gets bored. Get him outside and he's just happy. He will just walk around, play with the hose, play with my plants, trample my plants. But yeah, I just noticed such a big difference, and I'm on my phone less when I'm outside. I feel less stressed, and it's yeah, that is a huge part of why I love landscaping as well, because I think too many people are stressed out, and you know, technology is huge and houses are getting smaller. Our outdoor spaces have never been more important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing as you said it. You mentioned soil prep a lot, because I know you've got a lot of sandy soil in Western Australia. So is it sort of getting a bit of life into it as well as a bit of structure?
Yeah, so I mean, you probably know, but the biggest problem with having sandy soil is one, it's got little to no nutrients in it for your plants, but also water just drains straight through it. So even if you're watering enough, if you've got really sandy soil, it's literally just leaching straight through. And you know, I've been to consults where people are like, we've got good retic, it's coming on 3 times a week. Our plants still seem to be struggling, and all that water's just bypassing all the roots and leaching out. So soil has, a lot of the time, soil is the biggest problem. And it's something that's so hard to correct afterwards. So that's why I'm always stressing to people, don't skimp on your soil prep in the beginning, because you're setting yourself up for future problems if you do. So yeah, improving sandy soils is about, like you said, improving the structure. So I am always big on telling people that they need to add clay to sandy soils, which I feel like is not spoken about enough over here. Like, people know that they have to put in like organic matter, such as you know, soil conditioner and soil improver and compost and manures. People kind of know that, but when I say, oh, you've got to add clay as well, they're like, oh, I've not heard of that. So I'm all like, well, yeah, the clay helps to actually retain that water in the soil and change the structure so it's not so sandy. And people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, we've found a really awesome supplier over here who actually does a clay and compost mix. So that's what we use for all of our jobs, rather than, you know, having to try and source clay from somewhere and get soil conditioner or whatever from somewhere else. It's a mix, and we can change the percentage. So if we want it to have more clay, less clay, we can kind of adjust it to suit. But the first time we used it was for our own backyard. We quite literally built on a dune system. Like, our house is just beach sand. And you dig down in our soil out the back now, and it's just worms. Like, you would never believe that. We haven't done our front yard yet. So you see the front yard, which is pretty much a dune. And then people see the backyard and the soil, and they're like, oh, did you dig this all out and ship in new soil? And I'm like, no, we just improved the existing. Because I think that's something people get confused about as well. They think they have to dig out massive amounts of soil and bring in new soil, whereas I'm kind of saying, no, you don't have, it's not so much about taking out massive amounts. If you're putting the right stuff in and mixing it through your existing soil, it improves it rather than replaces it. So yeah, that's with, yeah, kind of used our garden as a guinea pig. And yeah, that soil mix has been one thing that I've just been like to clients, you have to use this, because it's just made such a huge difference.
I find it fascinating how different Australia can be. You're talking about trying to hold the water in, and over the eastern coast, we're trying to get rid of the water because we've got. If you need any clay, we've got plenty over here. You can swap some sand over. You work out well. It's probably a good balance if we switch the two, half and half. But it'd be our ideal system. But no, I was going to ask what you've got coming up for this year, but you've got you're all pretty much booked out, and you've got the new one on the way. So, what about you? So you're planning on once you get back into doing design, there's no plans on putting another designer on to help you out, is there?
So I actually hired a landscape design assistant. I think it was November last year. So yeah, I got to the point where I was just like, I can't do everything. Like, it's just impossible. But I was really stubborn, and I was like, it's going to be so hard to find someone that does things the way that I do. And I got to a point where I was like, well, there's no harm in just putting an ad out and see who's around and who applies. So I did that, and I had someone apply who kind of stood out from the beginning, and had a lot of had a design background, but also horticulture, which that really stood out to me. So I brought her on board, and she's a mum like me, so she's only working 1 day a week at the moment for me, but even that has been such a massive help. So yeah, she's going to be helping me out with the design side of things. I've also kind of sussed out someone else, like a contractor for 3D design as well. So, if we start doing a lot of 3D design, we can kind of make use of that as well, which would be really helpful. But yeah, I feel like we've got a pretty good balance at the moment in the office side of things, because we've got 2 of us working and a contractor that we can use. We'll obviously see how it goes and how things track, but for the moment, that's what we're doing.
And how about for Bruce Landscapes? Has he got any plan to put on an apprentice or anything?
We've kind of talked about it, but we don't know 100% what we're doing yet. John loves working by himself. Like, he just gets in, does stuff. But I think, it definitely would be helpful to get someone in to help him. We're just not, we haven't really sussed that side out of it yet. But yeah, it is something we've talked about, and that we know we have to consider. Okay, well, does he need someone to help him? And same thing, we can always try, and if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But at least we can see how it would help as well.
Yeah. All right, Bonnie, I'll let you go, but thank you very much for coming on today. It's been fascinating to hear about it, and I love what you're doing in terms of educating people as well about how to do it themselves if they can't afford to get you to do it. So yeah, well done on doing that, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been listening to your podcast over the last couple of weeks, and it's been so good. Like, obviously someone who loves talking about landscaping, and there's only so many people that love to talk about landscaping. So it's been really interesting and cool to hear other people's stories and hear about their businesses. It's been really interesting and cool.
Yeah, it's obvious that you're passionate about it as well. You can tell by listening. So thank you very much.
Thank you.